bar for bar viewer requested review. Davies Survival. This review was requested by Lucky on our Lulu review that I did last week. So this one's for you, I guess. Survival is the debut album by New York rapper Dave East. Dave East has released multiple mixtapes starting from 2010's Change of Plans. In 2014, he finally caught the attention of legendary rapper Nas and was then signed to Mass Appeal. Since then, he's released a few more mixtapes, but didn't actually release his debut album until November 8th, 2019. Personally, I've been a fan of Dave East since his 2016 mixtape, Kyrie Channel, and have followed him ever since. His appeal is definitely in his lyricism and storytelling about New York street life. Many people compare him to artists like Nas and Styles P because of his rhyme style and beat selection. He's definitely going for the more true rap fan appeal rather than the pop appeal, even though on Survival there was a few tracks that could be considered radio songs. Survival starts off strong with the track They Want to Kill You featuring DJ Premier. This track really sets the tone for what the album was going to be. It also ties in really well to the title of the album because it samples Mobb Deep's Survival of the Fittest. Unfortunately, it doesn't transition too well into the next track, Penthouse. That's not to say that Penthouse is a bad record, but it feels like it's one of the first few radio grabs on this album, at least until Dave's second verse where he just goes in. We then go into Godfather 4, which is a fantastic duet track featuring Nas. But again, it doesn't feel right to place it right after Penthouse. It almost feels like originally it was They Want to Kill You, then Godfather 4, and then someone decided, hey, we'll just put Penthouse in here. This, unfortunately, is a trend that continues throughout the album. We'll get a few great tracks and then a mediocre radio grab out of nowhere, or a few of them just strung together. This really does take away from the listening experience, especially for people who are looking to have a full album with Davies rapping hard on every track and with great production. Looking at the list of 20 tracks that we got and seeing that it's over an hour long, only to hear random radio songs is a little disappointing. If the album had been cut down to maybe 13 to 15 tracks and removed any tracks that mess up the flow, then this album could have been really good. This album, it feels like a bit of an autobiography of Dave's life. From the intro track, we hear him addressing people that thought that he wasn't going anywhere, which continues on in Godfather 4. With Need a Sign, Dave takes us into his earlier days where he's seeing his friends dying and reflecting on how things were when he was younger. Plus, Tiana Taylor does a fantastic job on this track. It's almost as if the first 4 tracks here are like an intro for the next few tracks, where he tells us about his time in high school. It's at this point where the album takes a turn. While listening to these tracks on my way to school, 17, and Mama, I Made It, it feels as though we're in for a more introspective look into Dave's life and like kind of a reason or explanation as to why this album is titled Survival. However, after those tracks, we have 8 more tracks that just kind of take us somewhere else entirely. The songs on this part of the album, like Night Shift and Me and Mines, aren't particularly bad, but they don't really flow well with the theme that it seemed like Dave was going for with his album. The other tracks that are in that 8-track string are some of my least favorite tracks on this album. I don't think I would even want to have them on like in the background, just for noise, because these tracks aren't really Dave's strong suit. They really just sound generic. The album does pick up back again at the end of the album with the last 2 official tracks, Daddy Knows and What You Mad At. The track Daddy Knows has an introduction featuring Dave's daughter, Kyrie, and it shows us a different side of Dave that we're not necessarily accustomed to. He gets less aggressive and raps about his daughter, and just kind of like what he did and like whether or not he should be telling her later on, stuff like that. It's a really heartfelt track. The final track, before the bonuses, that is What You Mad At, and that's probably one of the best tracks on the album. This track brings us back to the top of the album, where Dave reflects on his life and how he's arrived where he is now. Plus, the beat switch halfway through the track is dope, and then like Dave's second verse is really good too. Moving on to the bonus tracks, though, they still do need to be talked about because there's no version of the album without them. The first of the 2 bonus tracks is On Sight, which features Ty Dolla $ign, and it's really just a forgettable song, like many bonus tracks used to be, so I wasn't too upset about that. The second bonus track, though, is amazing. The Marathon Continues Nipsey tribute is a tribute to Nipsey Hussle, who passed away less than a year before the album dropped. This isn't the first Nipsey Hussle tribute song to have come out since his death, but this one's great because it highlights the relationship that he and Dave East had. Although it doesn't fit the flow of the album, it's still a really good track, and I understand why it was added as a bonus. With all that said, the album overall is a decent introduction to Dave East, but I would still recommend listening to his previous mixtapes, especially Kyrie Channel and Paranoia, for a better display of his skills and what he's capable of. It really does feel like this album suffers from a lot of what debut albums do, which is really just trying to gain mass appeal. It's funny because that's the name of the label too, but the problem here is when a label tries to appeal to as many people as possible, the artist's art can suffer. Dave is a perfect example because myself, as well as many others, feel that his previous works were miles ahead of Survival. I even spoke to Albizi, who's a pretty big Dave East fan, just to make sure I wasn't hating, and he shared the same sentiments. Basically, I feel like this album could have been a lot better than it was. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't to the same level as his previous works. Like I mentioned before, the album also just kind of feels really long. And if they had cut out a few tracks, it probably would have made for a better album. Well, some of my favorite tracks on this album, though, are Godfather 4, Need a Sign, Night Shift, What You Mad At, and The Marathon Continues. Hopefully, when Karma 3 comes out, older fans of Dave East will get what they missed out on this album. But we'll see. That's all I got. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and check out our previous reviews, and also let us know what else you want me to review. Like I said, this was a viewer requested one, so I'm in the comments looking. All right.